My name is Jason. I am 40 years old, and my mother-in-law is a woman of 55 years old. Her name is Linda. She is a very beautiful woman, and her figure is amazing. I have often caught myself looking at her and thinking how incredible it would be to spend time with her. She lives alone in her apartment. Recently, after a night out with friends, I decided to avoid a late-night argument with my wife. Instead of going home, I went to Linda's house since she lived nearby. I rang the doorbell, and Linda answered me, standing there in her nightgown. She looked absolutely gorgeous. I told her I didn't want to bother my wife and asked if I could stay the night at her place. Linda had prepared a couch for me, and not far from it was her bed. She was wearing a nightgown the whole time, and it was hard for me to take my eyes off her. She offered me something to eat, and I accepted. While she prepared the food, I undressed and joined her in the kitchen. We talked, and as I looked at her, I realized that I was falling in love with this woman. Later, when we went to bed, I couldn't sleep. My feelings were too strong, so I sat on the edge of the couch and told Linda everything. I told her how much I loved her. She was lying in bed, facing me, her face visible in the dim light. I couldn't hold back any longer. I got up, walked over to her bed, and did what I had wanted to do for a long time. "Why did you do that?" asked Linda quietly. Without answering anything, I lay under the blanket next to her, looking up at her. "Maybe this isn't right, Jason," she whispered with a sigh. But that was just the beginning. At that moment, I didn't fully understand what was going on. I just knew that I felt very good about her. That night, we became much closer, and I realized that she had different feelings for me. I should have told her that earlier. Afterward, we lay together in silence, enveloped in happiness and contentment, and eventually fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, Linda was gone. I heard voices in the kitchen. It was Linda talking to her sister. I lay still, trying to stay out of sight. When my sister left, Linda came back to me. "Are you still asleep?" she asked, smiling. I opened my eyes and lifted the blanket. Linda sat on the edge of the couch. It was the most amazing morning of my life to be with a woman I treasured very much. Thus began our secret life story. A half hour later, Linda walked me out, a smile playing on her lips. She hugged me and kissed me goodbye. "Jason, don't be a stranger. Come by more often. We are family after all," she teased. I smiled back at her. "I'll come whenever I can, as long as my wife doesn't catch it." "Don't worry about it," Linda said. "She's had a young lover for a long time." "I just couldn't bring myself to tell you." "But you know what I mean." Suddenly, everything made sense, both my wife's late nights at work and her weekends. "Yes, Jason, that's the way it is. But don't get upset." "I won't let you miss me," Linda added, gently stroking my head. When I got home, I heard my wife's voice as I barely crossed the threshold. "Where have you been?" "I need you to take out the trash and hang a shelf." "Not today," I reply. "I'm tired." I wasn't lying after a night with Linda. I was completely exhausted. And I felt that this was just the beginning of a difficult situation. I didn't bother telling my wife about her infidelity after all. I had my own secret now. Linda was more than I could have hoped for. The challenge now was to hide it by visiting her home regularly.